Well, there's little reasons I need to tell you all as to why I'm over in this area tonight. I will tell y'all that I've kind of moved around a little bit and came over to this area to kind of do a little more work because, as y'all will know, it's kind of probably going to be cold over in the shop because it's cold in here tonight. It's just cold outside and it's cold down this basement, so it's just an evening when we sort of have the fireplace over here and it's kind of easier to kind of come over here just to kind of do a little video work because I certainly kind of need to warm up a little bit for how cold it is, and probably going to be so in the shop a little too far from the thing, so just come on here with an 80 grit sandpaper, and that is it's actually, let's see, a 60 grit, now that I remember correctly. That's what it is. That's kind of the next one we do after we've already kind of accomplished what we did with the 40 grit, because you go a grit lighter every time, and this is all the things I've had to show, all the good that's happened in life, you know. It was like today, for example, talking to my therapist online, talking about little things we discussed, getting little things in the order they need to be, all the things that help us out the most. I'd say with all the variants we have, talked about my COVID booster from weeks ago, and talked about some of the little things we have coming up in my business, some of the places I've been around and some of the places I've been to, some of the things I've seen and heard. A lot to say, a lot to do, and you know, it's kind of comes to the point where when you get to be a little bit older, you start to see things from a different point of view. I've been around some kids lately, and they're young and college age, and they kind of think from a young people viewpoint, but we all know that little life can come to us in all forms, all shapes and sizes. Sometimes, just sometimes, we're going to kind of learn from what the young people say and think and do, and we all just kind of have our experiences come different ways. It's just the times when sometimes, just sometimes, the little things we learn in life and the little things we know, they make a way for us. They shine their light to us and shine it so brightly we just can never let it go. Sometimes, just sometimes, little lights shine and brighten our paths, brighten our days. I say that we come quite a ways to knowing these things. There are some grits of sandpaper that you don't have to use much. You can probably use them to a limit, to a limited amount. Once you've applied the grits that matter the most, it can probably only take a little bit of sanding with the other grits to kind of smooth it out a little bit. This is a time when we kind of go to the undersides and between the legs, in front of the hind legs, behind the front legs, kind of do a little work to get here and there. Probably don't have much Bible to tell you all about tonight, but there's a little work that comes in our hearts and in our minds and in all we do. I'm here to say that there have been times in my life I've talked about all the things I hear the young people say and see the young people do. Sometimes, you know, there's so much we learn in life as far as how life goes and how it treats us here and there, where things take us. And I'm here to say that I learn a lot from the places I've been. There's been people I've just kind of had convictions to kind of take some time away from, but also felt convictions to pray for. And just always makes me think about how, for me, as how it was as a much younger person. I've kind of just gotten there on the grit that was the 60 grit. Now it is time to find an 80 grit that I'm going to move down to. I'd say there's just so much confusion about all this. Finally found one. Maybe we need to find another to do the other sanding with. But with what we have, there's a lot we know, a lot we can do. Little times in our lives we felt like times were coming to us in all kinds of ways. I've got another 80 grit there, but this is the next line. Next one we're going to do. Take care of the little horsies just the way we need to. There are times in our lives when we see the things and hear the things that come along. And as for me, what I have to say is that when I was a much younger person, there were some older people I was kind of a blessing to. But even being a blessing to them in some ways, I could be kind of irritating to them in other ways. Kind of had some young people ways about me, and ways I did things, and ways I said things, ways I played music and whatnot. But there's a lot of stuff we just kind of find out and learn over time. It all kind of goes so well for us, and little things we learn, little things we do, and brightening days all the time, and seeing how it goes. And I know there were times when, even as the young person I was, kind of being some of the ways I was, and there were people who were seasoned and much older who just had so much more faith in life and knew how to pray and knew how to ask for things. And since I kind of blessed them in some ways and bothered them in a few little others, there were times when they prayed for me. Some of them, they are no longer on this earth. They're in heaven with God now. And they prayed for me during my time on earth. And there are times when I know now, even as a seasoned older person, there's a lot of things that I learn and experience that the younger people haven't yet. And there's been some of them who, if I've been around them and they've been a little bothered here and there with a little thing or two about them, even as good to me as they've been, the fact of the matter is I still pray for them, because it's just like how it was with me when I was younger. The older seasoned people prayed for me. Now it's kind of like my time to be the seasoned older person who prays for the younger person. In this little life, I say, we all go different ways. I will say now it is time to go down to a 120 grit. I will find one in here, find two, and since we are getting down to it, finally finding them, once I find another, we're going to get down to work. But I finally found them, and we're going to take this 120 grit and go about like this. I will tell you all the grits of sandpaper I started collecting since the pandemic. The thinnest one I got was a 240. Before that, I always went to Lowe's and always bought my sandpaper, and it's like before that, the lightest grit I could get was a 220, but I'm come to say that around the time the pandemic first came to Kentucky, that was when I sort of got online and sort of did some of the things I did, trying to brighten little days and make people's lives so special. I will say there seems to be something going around, it's a cold or a stomach bug or something like that. I would like to mention that these horses are coming a long way. There's been times in our lives when we've had the young people to think about and the young people to pray for. Sometimes, you know, you might not have lived the same life as somebody else, but, you know, you might have still lived to be much older and still been able to experience so much more. When you've become an adult, you start making your own decisions for the first time, but you get a little bit older and you've been doing it for a longer time, and then you start to kind of learn there's just a little gray area here and there, there's a little consequence here and there. There's some choices you've kind of made that don't really last quite as long or in quite the same way. We're going to try to go about these horses the best way we need to, but here I am to say that as for us people who are a little older in season, we've experienced more, we've learned more, we've tried more, and we've done more. There's so much we find out in life the older we get, and so much we learn to accept and to do. There comes times in my life when somebody like me needs a little introvert space, and sometimes there will be the moments when I'll come back around the extroverted people as soon as I kind of feel well enough and good enough and can kind of manage my life a little better around them. I will say there's been a little more sewing going on lately. I've sewn a couple of recently new elephants. I've kind of just finished stuffing one up today. I kind of made them from those jeans that were donated to me at the McLeod's coffee shop. And I thought the jeans were in too good a shape for me to use. Probably would have preferred they had gone to somebody who was much more in need of a pair to wear, or a thrift store or something like that. Guy who forwarded them to me from the person who donated them said the person wanted me to have them make animals of. He said, don't just not use them because they're in too good a shape. So I kind of learned that over time. Sometimes there's little things people might learn for future reference. One little thing I'd like to mention here and there is that sometimes when I'm kind of taking a little grit here and there, kind of going from one to the next, there's times when it comes down to a 220. If I have a 220, I might even use that before I do the 240, because that'll kind of give it a little more opportunity to kind of have some gradual smoothness instead of having all of it at once, because once you get all of it at once and you go too fast, it can probably not come out as neat, but you can take your time and you can make it come out a little bit better and neater and nicer and smoother and prettier. Sometimes when you rush through something, it doesn't get done as good. There were times in my younger years it used to take me more time to carve, more time to sharpen a knife. There was so much to learn, so much to practice. Sometimes when you start out, you know, I've heard a guy say that when he started carving, he did more sharpening than he did carving. So it was one of those things where sometimes they dole out, but here I'd say it's like, as far as the sanding goes, I once had a fella tell me that if I'd do my carving work a little slower, I wouldn't have to sand it. I'd say for some projects that may be very well true. Probably all depends on which one it is. This one where it's good for facets to show. It might be a good one to try to carve a little slower so you don't have to sand it in the end. But I will say that some of these lighter grits, they don't require as much use as the coarser grit does. Because when you're using the coarser, you're just kind of getting all the marks out of the wood. But when you use the lighter, you're just kind of smoothing out what the coarseness of the coarser grit already did. Now it's going to be coming down to a 240 grit, and that's what I'm going to work on here. We're going to kind of make things shine a little bit. There comes a time when all the work goes down and it all comes down smooth. So I just wanted to say that this little time in my life, work gets a little experienced as it gets. Sometimes, just sometimes, you just learn little things as you go. That's how it is with carving wood. That's how it is with sanding. That's how it is with crafting work. And that's how it is with lessons of life. Sometimes I use a little thing or two here to demonstrate how far I've come along. There were the days I used to go to my guild and they'd have a little problem with my silliness. There it was like mostly older men, but I was kind of young and kind of did some young man type funny stuff, and I'd say the silliness could kind of go a little too far sometimes, but I mean, they prayed for me, they watched over me, they kind of helped me a lot, learn a lot, and do a lot, and they really appreciated how good I was just doing it, learning how to carve. And I'll tell y'all something, people, this is how they finally come out. I do need to mention that there comes a certain point where we put a certain tag underneath that we laminate. I'd say that there's going to be a little work to that. You all can follow me along while we go and get the other horses, which we need to look off of, to see how we're going to demonstrate that. I'm going to show it to you on these as I get them back over here, but just kind of time to lay a few things down and get a little back in order and just come to see how we're going to do this. I'm going to try to lay this down, let y'all see what I have, see what I do. I say this one, you can probably see there was a little place where the saw kind of cut it a little too deep. So there was a narrow little gap down in there where the label went. This one came out nearly the same way, but we managed it, got it in good. This one was kind of less a flat curved surface, and this one kind of did well on its own. It's kind of hard to see what the tags say, but they say I choose charity over bitterness. That's just a real common slogan in my world, and in this little world of crafts I'm in. And for all the years I've recorded music or done most anything else, that's just kind of been a common phrase that I've used. Brightening little days, brightening little lives. God bless the children and every life that comes to mind. I'm here to say that I don't know what I did with a certain page of labels I had, but they're turning up here somewhere. I think I'm probably about to unbury them, about to see them turn up, and you know, little things of life, how they come up here and come up there. Oh, I tell you, little things, they shine in different places, different times. I'd say that apparently we might not find the tags we're looking for, but we've got certain ones that are here and available at the moment, so it's going to be little things like that that come to make our lives a little easier. On these ones, I tell you, the slogan came out a little bigger. It has a little bit of a bigger print, but if it's what we have right now, that's what we can apply to the undersides of these horses. Got to kind of check these, make sure that I've got them in the right direction. From what I'm seeing, it seems like I do, so I'm going to apply the tag just like this down the underside of the horse, and it's going to fit on just like that. I choose charity over bitterness. And lots of people see that phrase, lots of people like that phrase, lots of people love that phrase. Sometimes the phrase can mean a lot to people. They say it's a really good philosophy, they like it. And here's one where the underside kind of came out probably a little bit better than the other one did, so we're going to kind of label it quite the same way, and we got it to show right here. Little work shall come along. I'd say that I believe on these we probably did some stuff before we did other stuff, and I mean sometimes you know, when you kind of do the label as the last thing, it can kind of make it turn out a little unique, a little different here and there. But this is a time when we kind of got to find a little something here. Kind of got to find a paper towel like we got here. And this is a time when we take some super glue and apply it right to the underside, right over the tag. Kind of give the tag a little room. There's going to be times when, with all this work, it's going to come a long way, but I tell y'all people, this is how I laminate the tags. Tell a little story about it later, but the super glue kind of laminates the tag to the wood, so that way the tag doesn't come off in the oil, because when the tag soaks in the oil, it kind of makes a little time where the glue keeps the oil from making the tag come off. There's different kinds of oils I soak carvings in. Some of them I soak in linseed oil, and there's been other things, other figurines I've made that I've soaked in a mixture of lemon oil and olive oil. Some carvings, I say, are things that, you know, there's a better way to mineral to use, better way to use it. Like salad bowl finishes, mineral oil, they say, for example, you know. I've used that to coat some bowls I've made in the past, and it was all just pretty neat stuff. I enjoyed using it, I liked it, but it could just kind of be a lot of work to apply to what you do. Some people just made little things that they all just kind of designed in all the different ways they did. It was all just little things that shined their light in us and made us all see a little brightness in our paths, you know. It's all just little things that go quite a ways and make such a timely effort. I'd say we finally got enough on that one. Sometimes you might have to use several coats of this glue just to kind of make it come out all the good and for the better, and make it come out so nice as it needs to be. Take it all just slowly and time consuming, and when you take your time with it, it'll turn out so much better. And sometimes it kind of takes enough coating just to kind of get things down as smooth as they need to be. And with this one, it's almost like, I'll tell you a little story. There was a guy, when he was teaching me this stuff, I used to turn pins with him, and when we turned pins on the lathe, at that time we used a little super glue to coat them. We'd put super glue on the pin, and then we'd turn the lathe on and put a paper towel over it and use the super glue to finish off the wood there. Of course, later on he moved on to some other finishes, but that was just one of the places where I just learned the best, that was the best element to use to kind of put these tags on. Before that, I always used Mod Podge, and Mod Podge was good as well, but in my days in art class in school, we used Mod Podge to make little decoupages. And when I kind of learned about decoupage in school, I started as an adult looking at Mod Podge and trying to use it to coat some of my figurines, but it wasn't always the best thing. People said it was more like a glue, and sure enough, you'd probably say when it came down to it that it probably was. But little work like this, I have little things to put into it, you know. And I will tell you all that you've probably seen in some of my other videos the way that I have burnt my initials and the year into things I've made. That's what I'm going to do with these horses once I get finished working with them. And there's going to come a time when probably there's going to be a video, maybe by the end of this one. I don't know which video it's going to be. There's going to be one in which I'm going to demonstrate how I kind of put in the little eyes with the rotary tool. So I'd say as for here, we've probably got all the gluing done that we need to do, all the shining and finishing. So I just would like to say that a little work, a little knife, a little life comes a long way and makes us so much better and shinier and gloomier and everything else we need things to be in life, because this little work is going to take you a long way. Finish it a long way and you'll see what I mean. Goodbye.